then the second is about the gender angle, and then the third is crime, and then supply chains, and the last one is reclamation. Yeah, should be reclamation first. Okay, so this is our last series of discussion, and it's very special because we have Karol and Monica here. Karol is the coordinator of the crime angle. If you are from Philippines, you will be very familiar. She was with PCIT before, but now she's with us as editor. So we hijack her. We always hijack like the most talented journalists from your country, wherever your country. And then, but also she is a lecturer. And then Monica is a freelance journalist in India. Why we work with a freelance journalist? So this is the opportunity for everyone who wants to join our global collaborations. If you have a great pitch, even though you're a freelancer, you have a chance to join our global collaboration. Wait a minute, I have to check. Ade, have you live streamed the event on our?
Yeah, the problem is my connection is not good suddenly, and I still cannot connect to YouTube live.
Okay,
So
as long as
that's why I'm recording also.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay. Since we are all like working remotely, it's okay. It's not a big deal at all. Maybe we can, Monica is pitching a story. Monica pitched a really great story. Sad, tragic, of course, not great. Yeah, I mean, from India, along with Shamsir Yusuf, the other freelancer. So they work as a text journalists, and also they are both like multimedia journalists. So that's why they travel and work together for also safety reason, because after listening to her story, you will understand how difficult it is to report this crime angle. Okay, maybe I will give like a chance to Karol to present like in general about this angle, and then Monica.
Okay, thank you very much, Febri. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So let me just share my screen. Is it working? Okay.
Yep, it's working.
Okay, so as Febri mentioned earlier, the Environmental Reporting Collective has just published our latest collaboration. So this is a screenshot from our website. So I hope when you get the chance, for those who are listening, if we are streaming live, it's beneath the sands .earth. As you can see when you browse the website, apart from, of course, the great stories from our partners, we also wanted to look into specific issues that are common among the countries where we have our partners. So as you can see here, we have special stories kind of summarizing what has happened in the various countries, specifically looking at the environmental impact, gender, looking at the supply chain, as well as reclamation issues. And for today, we will be talking more about the crime angle. As you can see also here on the screen, we have our great set of partners, partner newsrooms, their logos below. So for crime, as Febri mentioned, I was assigned to work with our partner reporters where there are crime issues concerning sand mining in the respective countries. So perhaps I should start with, so as you know, when we started working on the sand mining stories last year, it's not entirely, of course, a new story. In fact, as early as 2014 and maybe even a few years back, the United Nations Environment Program already published a study precisely to call attention on how the issue of sand mining and its various impacts in communities had been mostly ignored by policymakers despite the modern world's increasing dependence on sand. Sorry, you can probably hear thunder here because there's a typhoon coming here in the Philippines. So apologies for that. Um, so this was way back in 2014, almost a decade before. So, but now, so fast forward to 2022, 2023, the same stories emerge. So the highly lucrative and the low risk business of sand mining continues to drive and perpetuate violence, cause loss of revenue, and various forms of abuse within a vast multinational trade. In fact, a 2021 study by Luis Fernando, he is a federal police specialist from Brazil. The title of the study is Illegal Sand Extraction, Revenue in Brazil and in the World. According to his estimates, the value of illegal sand extraction is estimated to be between 199 billion and 350 billion dollars each year. So these figures are on par with the value of other global crimes monitored by the Global Financial Integrity, such as drug and human trafficking, illegal wildlife trade, and illegal fishing, to name a few. So this was kind of our background. So when we started the collaboration and the reporting with the partners, our partners found a similar alarming pattern. So these are the countries where we worked with our partner reporters. So for the crime angle, the story that you will read on the ERC website contains the reporting of our partners from India, Monica Jha, who's joining us today, Shamshir Yousaf, Tarushi Pitigala from Sri Lanka, Aritesh Tripathi from Nepal, Ledin Tui and Giang Lamle from Vietnam, and Carlston Lapitan from the Philippines. So I'll be sharing an overview of their stories. So there are similarities in Nepal and the Philippines, for instance. Threats stalk journalists reporting on illegal sand mining, as well as environmental activists leading protests against activity. I'm sure, of course, this isn't only happening in Nepal and the Philippines, but I think for any environmental issue, we would have we may be able to find similar patterns also. So in Nepal, I am showing you here a picture of Om Prakash Mahato. So he is a 25-year-old engineering student, and he was beaten and crushed to death under the wheels of a truck on the banks of the Orahi River in 2019. So Mahato was leading a movement to stop the mining of the river there in Sripur in Nepal. While two of the murderers of Mahato, their names are Bipin Kumar Mahato and Munindra Mahato, they were sentenced for life. However, the sand mining operator involved is still operating. Journalists covering illegal sand mining in Nepal have also been under threat. For instance, the Kathmandu-based Freedom Forum have documented cases of either sand smugglers or officials manhandling, defaming, and restricting access to journalists covering the issue. This dangerous phenomenon isn't rare. As I've mentioned, the same also happens in the Philippines. In the Philippines, in Cagayan province, one of our reporting fellows, Mark Saludes, and an advocacy officer, Sheena Katrina Orihuelam, of the faith-based organization Laudato Si Philippines, They were harassed by a group of armed men in April 2022 when they were covering a protest of fisherfolk and church members against alleged black sand mining operations in the area. In the same northern part of the Philippines, where most of the sand resources are, black sand in particular, similar incidents have also been documented. So for instance, in Ilocos Sur, which is also in the northern part of the Philippines, Sherwin De Vera, an activist with environmental advocacy organization Defend Ilocos, was arrested for rebellion in December 2017. The rebellion charge was filed in 2014 when he participated in protests urging the government to stop illegal sand mining in northern Philippines. So this is one of the image that you're looking at here is part of the series of protests that took place in 2014. However, De Vera was freed a month later and his case eventually dismissed. As some of you may have known, here in the Philippines, it has been common for environmental activists or even journalists to be red tagged or tagged as, communist if they are protesting against, let's say, government projects involving development projects and such as mining. And then we go to Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, in Mannar, an Australian mining company, Titanium Sands Limited, and its subsidiaries have been going in and out of private lands, digging holes to get samples as they plan to mine ilmenite sand, a key substance in producing titanium, which is a globally sought after material. So essentially, in Sri Lanka, and I suppose in many, if not all countries, no one is allowed to enter private property, of course, without the consent of the landowner. However, in this particular island, in Sri Lanka, sand miners can. So in fact, many of the more than 4,000 holes dug were done in private land without obtaining permission from the landowners. So in this particular town, residents worry that if the mining proceeds, they would lose both their land and groundwater. But as in many poverty-stricken areas with rich minerals, of course, communities are often torn apart with some selling their land. So what has happened in Sri Lanka is that, of course, a company would offer, of course, benefits if they allow mining. So some members of the communities have already sold their lands. One of the residents there told our partner reporter, we can't stop the project after they start the project. So we need to be against this before they start. But the problem is villagers sell their land at higher prices to outsiders. We need money to live. That's why people sell their lands. So that's the story for Sri Lanka. For Vietnam, so in Vietnam, sand demand for construction in the Mekong Delta and Ho Chi Minh City alone is estimated to be a lot, 3 million cubic meters per month. However, our reporters found out that the amount of sand with legitimate invoices make up only 10 to 20% of this estimate. So there is a lot of loss of revenue documented in Vietnam. The underreporting of the amount of sand actually mined or the use of false invoices has allowed companies from not paying taxes in full. Going after these activities has resulted in some collection of fines and some successful prosecutions, but they remain rampant. And then, of course, we will talk about the story of India. The situation in India is by far most alarming. And of course, we're very happy to have Monica here, who can tell you more about what's happening in India. So Just to wrap up my part, of course, I started earlier with a UNEP study, so that was 2014. UNEP continued looking into the issue, and last year, actually, they did release another study on sand and sustainability, capturing what has been happening in many countries. So for this particular study, they crafted 10 recommendations to avert a crisis. So they're already referring to it as a potential crisis. So as you can see here, a lot of the recommendations here pertain to regulation also, because that's also one of the important things that we found in all of the countries where all of these problems are happening. Of course, true enough, same for the Philippines, Nepal, and even India. Mining and environmental rules and regulations exist. However, it is the law enforcement that has been mostly been problematic. And in many of the countries, it's also, some officials have been allegedly involved in sand mining as well. So the problem really has become very serious. So it's not unlikely to hear from a lot of the residents or the community members that they would feel that it seems like they don't have anywhere to go. So I've mentioned the countries earlier, but as you know, it's not just happening within the countries covered by the ERC. So the multi-billion-dollar business has also become the subject of organized crime, spawning violence in other countries, also including Indonesia, Kenya, Gambia, and South Africa. So I think that's it for me. I'm just showing you here the crime story that our reporters worked on, which you can also see on our website, beneaththesands.org. So thank you very much for listening. Monica will be next to talk more about the story from India. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Carol. And I always trust you to come up with a fantastic PPT and making me feel like a lazy reporter. I don't have a presentation for you guys. I'm really sorry. So it's just me talking to you, trying to tell you about the story that my colleague Shamsheer Yusuf and I brought from the eastern Indian state of Bihar. This story is set on the banks of the river Son, where the construction grade sand is highly prized. And there is a lot of legal mining where the state issues license to a private firm to excavate sand. But a lot of mining in this state happens illegally. In some places, the region that we are focusing in our story, in that region, up to 80% of all mining is illegal. And the legal miners work on the bank of the river, but illegal mines can come up anywhere. They can come in the middle of riverbeds where miners can excavate right from the riverbed, harming the river. And it can even come up on farmlands on the riverbed. It basically can come up on any land that miners can control. And local people call these illegal miners as sand mafia. And now there isn't just one mafia or one mining group. There are several mafias eyeing the same piece of land. And this leads to armed clashes because each mafia, then to protect their land from the other mafia, hires a set of armed gang of goons. And when two mafias clash, there is a gang war. And in such gang wars have been pretty common in the state of Bihar on Son riverbed, and it has killed a lot of people. And I could share more details of this as we discuss more with Karol. Thanks to you, Karol.
Okay. Thank you, Monica, for sharing the story. It's sorry, there is like it's very shiny because I'm based in Bali. Sorry. Okay, so it's very interesting the first time when we got pitch from India, which is like we see that we saw that the crime story is actually intersect with the other story or angle, like social angle. So maybe can you explore about how like the privilege case play important role in this global sand mining business in India?
Yeah, sure, Febriana. Thank you. The Indian caste hierarchy that plays a very, very major role in how illegal sand mining works in this state, and also how the whole clash of sand mafias plays out in Son River. So caste angle comes into play in two major forms here. One is that laborers get caught in the gang wars. Like when an armed gang is looking to snatch control of a mine, what they do is they open fire at the laborers working at that mine. So it kills a few people, and the survivors are then frightened to work at the site. Because if they kill a rival gang member, that would provoke an all-out war, and they don't want that. But if you kill a laborer, a poor laborer, then work stops, but the other party is not enraged enough to probably like go for an all-out war. But it's good enough to stop mining at the site temporarily and also reduce your rivals' profits. A lot of sand laborers come from disadvantaged castes, and most miners are from privileged or mid-level castes. So you can see that how whether this miner wins or that in a gang war, the collateral damage is always more often than not from a disadvantaged caste. The other reason how oppressed caste come in the line of fire here is because a lot of land in the riverbed here, which miners want to excavate for sand, belongs to the oppressed caste. So oppressed castes in India and largely in Bihar, they are largely landless. Bihar is actually one of the states where Dalit Dalits literally called downtrodden. They are the oppressed caste, the most marginalized caste. They are mostly landless. So the state government over a period of time has given them this riverbed land to make a living. It's mostly been called an election uh, like tool to woo their voters, but a lot of this riverbed land now belongs to the oppressed caste because the state government has leased out these lands to them. So in a way, it's the government that has put them in the line of fire here. First, by allotting them this land, and secondly, by not protecting them from the sand mafia. So this is how the whole caste angle plays out here, Febriana.
Okay, thank you for explaining that because I mean like I live in an island in Indonesia where people also apply case, but we never knew that case in India can determine whether you can own a land or not, or like you can occupy another people land. So that's very interesting. That's why. And maybe come back to Karol. I'm just like curious when you coordinate this crime angle, and then you see that the even like the journalists, it's not safe to cover that issue. So in general, can you explain like what kind of threat that the journalists receive, like maybe from the Philippines? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Fabiana. So for the Philippines in particular, and perhaps I'd like to speak in general also, not just in particular sand mining or, maybe more generally environmental stories. Typically, the difficulties is quite a range. So, it can be, from um, restricting access to records, to interviews, avoiding interviews, to, to the more serious ones like red tagging journalists, as I mentioned earlier. Or of course, especially here in the Philippines, we have a lot of cases where environmentalists and even journalists have been killed in the line of their duty because they are reporting or investigating on a certain topic. So this happens primarily because, of course, there are a lot of political power at play also. So, of course, and I'm sure this happens in a lot of countries as well. Typically, when we talk about environmental stories, we are basically talking about land, who gets to control the use of resources. And that means a lot of money also. So the political aspect is a crucial issue here in the Philippines. So that's why if you look at our cases of journalist killings, for instance, you will see that a lot of the perpetrators identified or listed are politicians or officials in government, which of course on its own is very tragic already, but it's also the impact is in the long term because it kind of sends, this message to other journalists who might want to investigate or report on the same issue. So again, it's tragic on its own for the journalist and the journalist's family. But again, it creates this whole the environment is not ideal for reporters or for investigative journalists. But of course, you might say, so how are we able to still, do reporting or, cover all of these issues? So of course, there are a lot of nuances here in the Philippines. When I talk about journalist killings, primarily this happens. I'm not saying the capital or Manila is, rid of killings or killings do not happen here. But if we look at the records or the cases, a lot of these killings are happening outside of Metro Manila or in the provinces. So somehow what works in the case for the Philippines is that there is collaboration between local reporters and organizations or reporters working here in Manila. So even though, it might be dangerous to work in a particular place, you get support from other organizations or other reporters. So there's somehow we're able to make do and still be able to report on these issues. But of course, as I think everyone in the collaboration would know, it can be very dangerous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karol. It makes me want to reflect also with the reporting environmental issue in Indonesia. So I just met like I think dozen of journalists across Indonesia, and most of them also covering environmental issue. So I think like Indonesia and Philippines share something similar. So not only killed, so journalists not only so they're not only kill the journalists but also jail them. So there is like a story about a journalist covering coal mining company in Kalimantan or Borneo, and then one of them killed in a prison and then the other jailed for 3.5 months. So I meet the journalists who was jailed, and yeah, it's yeah, it's crazy. If in Jakarta it's not going to happen, but in another remote island. So this is also like I want to hear from Monica. So most of these threats are incidents happens in the remote. So Bihar, one of the state visited by Monica, also located in the southern of India, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Monica can explain, but I want to know like how difficult for you, Monica, to cover this story, because we know even for you it was very hard to take any video and interview the source.
Right, Febriana. So Bihar is in the eastern part of India, but it's known as one of the most backward states because it's all the health and education, all the and human rights indicators aren't great. We have a bad malnutrition problem, illiteracy, the sex ratio, all the typical problems of a rural setup we have in Bihar. And I would like to give you some background on how and why Shamshir and I picked this story to do. So this was in the year 2021, and Shamshir Yusuf, my colleague who I reported this story with, and I were traveling around Bihar to report on another story. And we were crossing a river and we got stuck in a really, really long traffic jam. And it was created by trucks transporting sand, river sand. And there were sand trucks parked on either side of the road, which was already narrow. And there were many earth movers and excavators that we could see like parked on the riverbed on the either side. And we were just wondering, like, is anybody doing anything about it? Is anybody going to clear the traffic jam? And none of that happened. We were just stuck there for many, many hours. And Shamshir's instinct was, we should do a story. And I come from Bihar. And I had heard some vague stories of the murderous sand mafia in Bihar. I was scared. Sand mining in any way is considered one of the deadliest things, one of the most dangerous things that an Indian journalist can report on anywhere in India. And if you just know a little bit about Bihar, it's just another level. But the idea stayed with us. And then in mid 2022, when ERC was looking to do a global report on sand mining and asked us if we had some ideas, we decided to pitch this story because we believed it would add a unique perspective to the report because it's about river sand mining, firstly, while most other countries were bringing coastal sand mining issues. And it also was how oppressed caste bear a disproportionate burden of mining here. So for that reason, but the first reason why we picked this story is the sheer scale of violence. It's unheard of anywhere else. Precisely what had scared me in the first place, that pushed me to pursue this story this time. It's just mind-boggling the kind of tidbits we got to hear once we started researching the story. We started talking to a lot of people. There were no official estimates or data on the number of people killed, but everybody was talking about crazy like scale of violence. And people living in other parts of Bihar also have not heard about it. They don't really have a fair idea of what's happening in Son River region. And that's the reason we wanted to report on this story. And like Febriana was asking how challenging it was. So people understandably were very scared to share their stories. We didn't know how to approach them without risking their lives. There was no official data. And there are also a lot of allegations of government officials, including the from police department and politicians being in collusion with the sand mafia. So official information was hard to come by. And people who were victims of this violence, they were very, very scared to talk to us. And how we worked around all of that is something probably we could discuss a little later. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your hard work, Monica. I think I wanna ask audience here. Anyone has question? So this is your chance. Because we cannot live stream on YouTube due to the connection, but we are going to put all this discussion on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about the story from Carol and Monica, you can raise your hands, or you want to share the story of any sand mining related to the crime in your country. Please do share with us. We would like to hear from you. Anyone want to ask question? Anyone here? Yeah, okay. You have two question. Kiran, yeah, you can just you can just turn on your you can just turn on your mic. Kiran, turn your mic. Oh, is that your question? Solution?
Hi,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for organizing this and for your incredible work. It's really wonderful to hear stories from across so many different places. I was one of the authors of the UNEP report that you spoke about. So I've worked on this topic for a really long time. So it's really exciting to see the work that you are doing. So I have two questions. One is, do you see any difference between mining for construction sand and mining for mineral sand? And the second, which I think is I'm personally very invested in and interested in, are there any solutions?
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.
Very honored that one of the researcher from the UNEP is here with us. She should share.
I'm not connected. I don't work for the UNEP.
Okay.
I'm independent, but I did co-author the third chapter on that. Thanks so much.
Okay, I think that refer to the environmental impact. Maybe Carol or Monica, you can add. From me, I think because I monitoring all the angle, we even though we don't look into that detail, what is the difference between the constructions and non-construction sand. But we cover both type of sand. So for example, on construction sand mostly happen in a river. I think the mining is more of them like illegal mining, most of them. But for like this specific type of sand, mostly done by a big company because it's very expensive. So like for example, the one that happened in Mannar Island, Sri Lanka. So mostly done by like a big company because they have to travel this type of sand to another country. Like for example, to United States, United States is the most like the exporter, like the with the highest volume among the other countries. So like most of this type of sand travel to United States and Australia, and a country like United Emirates Arab, UAE. How do you spell this? United Emirates Arab. So this building in Dubai, actually Burj Khalifa, it builds from this specific type of sands. It's actually they imported from an Australian company. So that's I think the difference is the actor. So for river sand, like in Mekong River, mostly you can find this cheaper sand for construction done by the local company or just illegal company. But I don't see any specific difference with the mining. I think like the equipment may be different. For the low or like a low type or like for the construction sand, they usually use like a manual worker, but for this specific type of sand, they really use like equipment. That's why there are so many holes in Mannar Island, because they use this specific equipment. Maybe Carol and Monica can add. And about solution, this is also like maybe I add a little bit. This is also what we have discussed before. So we think that why we don't put solution on that, because we think that there is another angle that is more, solution is important, but there is another angle that we need to push forward before we talk about solution. It is the regulation. So this is what we want to talk for the follow-up story, like regulation and solution. Just so let you know. Carol and Monica, do you want to add?
Hi, Kiran. Thank you very much for joining. Perhaps I'd like to address the solutions question. I'm a little bit unfamiliar with like the difference of the sand, so I might not be able to provide a comprehensive answer for that. But in terms of solutions, of course, it depends case to case. But in the case of the Philippines, for instance, what happened in the Philippines in particular actually is that the community was able to stop mining. So I suppose it's one success story that we were able to document for the Philippines. I mentioned earlier how difficult it is to report on environmental stories here in the Philippines, but perhaps this is probably not entirely like straightforward solution. But my main takeaway from that story is that, like, like government agencies or government in general is not a monolithic entity. So while we may observe, or while we know that there are a lot of corrupt officials, there are other offices or agencies where you have the right people there at the right time. So I think for that particular story, the one that Carl Lapniten, our fellow, worked on, it was years of work done by the community there in Ilocos Sur. And then they got to a point where the officials changed because an elections happened. So the right people were were sitting in office by the time they were continuing the protest in that particular province. So that eventually led to the mining there to stop. And there were cases filed against the companies, although of course, as you know, not all cases would be successful, but at least for now, they were able to stop sand mining in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Monica, do you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Febriana. Hi, Kiran. Thank you so much. And it's really wonderful to hear from you in this session. We have all read that report as the prerequisite for doing these stories. So it's really wonderful that we have you here today. And I would like to add the Indian perspective on your first question that you asked about the mining for construction sand and mining for mineral sand. So in India, at least, that's all I'm aware of. The major difference is in the laws. Because the beach sand mining happens for rare atomic minerals, and including for thorium, monazite. And India's nuclear program, power program, aims to use thorium in the nuclear power program. And that's why India had restricted beach sand mining of thorium. Only a couple of government agencies were allowed to mine beach sand. But in Andhra Pradesh, the government had allowed some private firms to mine beach sand for minerals, but except for monazite, which has a potential use in the nuclear program. But then the one major company that was doing beach sand mining in Andhra Pradesh later was found to be indulging in not just illegal mining of beach sand, but also illegal export of monazite. And later, the Indian government, under pressure over corruption charges in that case, they banned private firms from beach sand mining completely. It's only a few government firms that can do sand mining for minerals. But now government is again looking to open beach sand mining. We don't have any explanation for the logic behind it, but they are looking to open it to private firms again. We know it because it's a part of India's Prime Minister's 60-point action plan that he announced in 2021. So that's the situation of beach sand mining for minerals in India. While river sand mining, construction sand mining is governed under different laws, mostly formulated by each state where the mining is happening. And it's allowed, private firms are allowed. They bid for the lease and they do mining. And the solution angle, I think I don't really have an original thought. I'm just building on what Febriana and Karol were talking about, because I think a major path to finding a solution is better understanding the problem itself. Like in the Bihar story, we are talking about mind-boggling kind of crimes. Many people dead and a lot of families at risk. What we are looking at essentially is not a lack of laws or regulations. What we are looking at is lack of enforcement. So if we know the problem, I think it leads us to look at a solution. And what Karol was pointing at is if there are corrupt officials, there are also some good officials. And that is very evident in this case of Bihar, because there are a lot of examples we found of officials who are facing departmental inquiries, suspensions, and stuff over their alleged involvement with the sand mafia. But at the same time, there are many officials in Bihar who are regularly openly attacked in public by sand mafia for the kind of good work they want to do. So I'm sure there are good officials, as Karol was pointing out. So I guess better enforcement, finding ways of better enforcing the laws that we already have. And courts in India have also been helpful in some cases, because in Bihar, when illegal mining, it's right now a lot of private mining was suspended in a lot of in whole of Bihar, because the National Green Tribunal had passed an order related to one particular case in Bihar, where they could show a lot of activists showed a lot of irregularities. And the National Green Tribunal just said that unless Bihar comes up with better laws and regulations, they shouldn't be auctioning these sand mines to private guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Just want to add a little bit that actually one of our media partner, Mekong Eye, published a story about the solution. Solution, it means like how to replace sand as the main material for the construction building. But I think like we have so many material can replace sand actually. But in the case of, for example, Indonesia, if it is the sustainable architecture, whatever. We actually, the indigenous people here actually have applied it. But then the government pushed modernization and even like force them to like modernize them. And then that's how like for example in the remote province of West Papua, people like living in a sustainable hut made from wooden something, I don't know, yeah, wooden, and then yeah, with the grass as a roof. But then the government forced a program where they have to build a house from sand. So I mean construction, that's what happened. So I think like a and then when we come back to build a house from wooden or whatever, bamboo, or it's getting more expensive because we forgot how to build that house from bamboo and from from wood. So that's why we hire an architect. So architect is more even expensive. So so far, if the government didn't support the sustainable construction or like material, it's I don't think it's going to work. That's why we need to push the regulation. But so far, like in Bali, people start to build a house from wood again. So my house is from wood and from bamboo, so wood and bamboo, because it's more like I mean it's more sustainable here, but it's still expensive. It's still expensive. So we need the support from the government if we talk about solution, I think. Monica?
Yes, when we are talking about solutions, I think the Indonesia example is still way better than what we have heard in India, because India, in a couple of states, they tried to find two alternatives. One was that they call it M-sand. And M-sand here is actually when it could refer to Malaysian sand or manufactured sand, and both are problematic because in one case you are clearly just transferring your problem to another place. Instead of using river sand from an Indian river close to you, you are just importing sand from Malaysia. So a couple of states like Karnataka and Kerala in South India, they tried that, and that plan didn't go very well. The government agencies imported a lot of sand, and that's clearly problematic because what is it doing to the people and the ecosystems in Malaysia? And the other one was manufactured sand, where so they said that we will not use river sand and we will use manufactured sand. But where was that manufactured sand coming from? Next to Bangalore in Karnataka, a big rock just disappeared overnight because it was crushed to make manufactured sand. So that again is clearly problematic to the ecology of that place and the people and flora, fauna, everything that depends on that kind of ecosystem. So when we are talking about alternates or solutions, I guess we need to be really mindful of that.
Okay, I hope it answered your question. Yeah, I know, right? It's very hard. So I just wonder if you just stay follow the indigenous community way of life. But you know, our government have this index of development where we have to reach this and that, and then force people and trying to modernize people. And then now all the house made from sand, and then also prone to disaster, to be honest. That's why this wooden house of mine in Bali, it's very stable. When there is like earthquake, actually it's survived than the other construction building in Bali. So I'm glad that I stay in a wooden and bamboo house here. Okay, I think like the other if you have a question, please raise your hand, or you want to share. I know that the sand mining is something that you have never told before, but when we did a global convening last year, when someone mentioned about reclamation, and then we did a full research on that, we think that it's very, very crucial thing to investigate. Like, it's not a popular thing like nickel. I investigate nickel too, and palm oil, for example, or the other, but this is like a very serious problem because we use sand in every single activity in our life. For example, when we are doing this Zoom, we are using our phone or iPad or computer. It's made from a specific type of sands. And then we we also have our glass right now in front of us. It's also made from sands, and also all this building that we live and all the roads made from sand, and we are running out of sand actually, and so many of this environment destroyed because of this sand extraction around the world, and no one really pay attention because it's not like something geopolitical like nickel, I think, or whatever, palm oil. It's not, but it's like we use this sand so massively, and we don't care about the impact because we don't really pay attention. It's not a popular topic, I know. But for people who live there in like nearby the sand mining sites or whatever impacted like that, they for them it's very important topic. Like, for example, the resident who live like across the Mekong River, so many story about that, but we need to publish the story again and again because we want to remind and retell the story so people don't forget about how dangerous this extractive sand mining around the world. And it's not, there is no regulation or institution monitor that, so we want to push, I think, whatever institution like UNEP maybe to like we are going to make sure we cover the story until maybe like there is a progress, like a body or institution monitor or like a better regulation in the future. Anyone want to share story again or ask question? Please share. Yeah. Sharon, are you there? Is this like Sharon, our reporter from Kenya? Okay. Um, uh, if no one asks, maybe I will ask another questions to Carol and Monica. So after after you join this global collaboration, have you ever thought that this topic actually it's all about everything that we do in every day? Like, have you ever realized that this is like a very important topic in the end? Before you join and after you join, is there something new that you change your mind about this topic?
I think at least for me, so somehow I had some idea, but after participating in the collaboration and seeing the stories from our other partner reporters, I just could not imagine like the extent of the problem and the inequity also, because again, of course, you know, we will see in the stories that a lot of other countries depend on other countries, you know, as they modernize. So you could just see the disproportionate impact if you look at that scenario. So again, and I think this is everybody is very much aware of it. I think this is really a problem that we need to continue monitor and to report on. And as you mentioned earlier, I didn't realize that we use sand in a lot of the things that we use now. So reading
I told
parts of
you.
Yeah,
everything.
reading
All that
parts of
glasses in your photo frame, even your lamp, even like everything, it's using sand. Even
Yeah.
even walls, everything that you use is from sand.
Mm.
Even the cosmetic wherever is also made from sand.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's actually Monica.
Yeah, Febriana. I mean, I was kind of aware of how much sand we use because India is only second only to China in its sand consumption. It's is the second largest sand consuming country in the world. Um, and the kind of forms, because I'm an electronics engineer, I'm aware of the chips and glass screens and everything using silicon. Yes. Uh, uh, what uh, what was insightful for me, uh, like when we started collaborating and exchanging stories from across the world, there were so many patterns that are similar, while each country has a very local context to it, which is very specific to that country or that region. There are so many similar trends. The trends of exploitation, like in Bihar, it was about a privileged caste exploiting the disadvantaged class. But the exploitation of vulnerable people who live in the low-lying regions or the threatened areas, that was similar, whether it's Kenya or Vietnam or anywhere in Mekong Delta for that region. You brought a lot of stories from Mekong Delta, and I realized how similar the trends were of exploitation and how
Okay.
the most vulnerable bear the biggest burden.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, both of you. I just want to give like the last chance for anyone who want to ask question. Please feel free or to share. I myself, that one that really insightful for me is before I joined this global collaboration, I thought it's all about just building construction sand. Okay, but this is like the level of the scale of this business is so huge, so we need to investigate. But I just realized from our global collaboration that this massive extractive sand mining operation, it's actually changed the diet of the people in the neighborhood. So for example, the one that we found in Kenya, where the farmland turned into sand harvesting site, and it's hard for them to find the traditional food there because they no longer grow that food anymore. And they have to buy it instead from the other region. And then like the change of the damage in the fishing grounds across the ocean of the country that we report, it also huge story. I think it will also destroy the habitat, the coral and everything. So it's sad, kind of sad, I think, that this is change the diet. So we already talked about this, and we want to continue talking about this in our next follow-up story. Okay, finance and economic clinic for journalists. You can turn on your mic if you want to ask question or to share. Yeah, yeah, you can share now.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, my name is Fred. Okay, so probably the only man to speak today. Stories are pretty similar to what is happening in Ghana. We equally have sand mining in Ghana, but it is not making the headlines in Ghana because probably our worst form of environmental challenge is.
Yeah. You need to turn on your mic. You just
Forest cover. But the point I want to raise about the sand mining in Ghana is that it's also resulting in, it's actually affecting some major sources of drinking water, because these guys go and basically destroy the land, the vegetation that protects the water body that the country relies on to supply potable water to the homes. And they are so powerful. There was an instance where one of the ministers of state had to go and visit the place, try to discourage the people, and they called the bluff of the minister. They are so connected to very high people in places, so they don't fear anybody. You drive them away, they're back the next moment because of the money that they make as a result of that. They have this equal because they are rich, they have the resources. And that's where my interest is. So from my name, you could tell that my interest is in financial journalism. But I see a lot of link between finance and what is happening in that sector, the mining. It's the motivation is to get money. And then when they have money, they have the influence to continue to do the wrong thing. And until probably we'll look at that factor of the motivation, the money that they are seeking for, and the money that gives them power to continue to do that, we probably will not be able to address this issue. And in other jurisdictions, in other countries where they monitor such people, they are jailed for illegal acquisition of wealth and all of that. Maybe those are some of the things we have to look at to see how these guys can be found guilty, not just because of their winning son, but they are acquiring wealth illegally. And it is that wealth that gives them the power to continue to do the illegal things. I don't know if my submission is clear.
Yeah, thank you for your sharing. Yeah, this is what we found as well, that the sand mining operation also destroyed also affected the drinking water, or like the source of water, destroy the source of water. That also happened in some of the region that we cover. And yes, that the problem is with the law and regulation. That's why no one really being punished for the environmental damage and even the crime that they are committed of. So that's why in ERC, in our global collaboration, we pushed to that this sand mining should be regulated globally, and hopefully that we are working on it for the follow-up story. So this is not going to end here, but there will be like a follow-up story led by our editor Karol here. So and also will involve like our next grantee. So we are going to launch a grants related to sand mining. So and keep publishing and monitoring this story until the whole year, so until next year. So I think there is no question, yeah, so I can announce what's next. So even though this is like the last event for our Beneath the Sand Global collaborations, we are going to have a global conference next month where you can listen to our next project for the follow-up. Next project of the follow-up. So we want to launch a project of a grant and offer like the topic related to the sand mining. And also like we want to hear from you what we need to what kind of topic or what topic that we need to investigate in the next year. So I think like before we end it, Monica want to share a little bit before we end this session.
Thanks, Febriana. Yes, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about the kind of stories that we found when we talk about the scale of violence and the gang wars. We are talking about real people, and I would just like to tell you about a couple of these stories so that we know what kind of real trouble we are dealing with. Um, so we met an 8-year-old girl who was hit by a stray bullet. She was just playing in the fields in the riverbed while her grandmother was harvesting chilies from their farm, and they heard some gunshots, but they did not think that they should flee because gunfights are very common in that area. And she got hit by one of those bullets being exchanged between two armed gangs. And in another case, in 2021 August, a 35-year-old farmer was shot at. He survived a gunshot in his left arm. All his fault was that he was trying to protect his land from sand miners who forcefully wanted to dig his land for sand, because only the top soil in the riverbed is fertile, but a few feet below is sand that the miners want to excavate. Then we met another lady whose father hasn't come back home since September last year. The cops say that the father was a gang leader, but the lady says that he was just a laborer. In any case, the family hasn't received a word from him or even his dead body. And bodies of two other people who had accompanied her father was found 2 days after a gang war had broken out since when the father disappeared. So this lady, Sunita, assumes that her father is dead, and the family held his last rites using effigy made of straw because they did not have a dead body, and her mother lives like a widow. And whether the father was a gang leader or not is the family that is at loss. And the lack of the dead body is a trend that we saw it was very common in that area, because Sunita told us, this lady whose father is missing, she told us that nobody ever comes back from gang war site, dead or alive. And a lot of other people also told us that that the sand mafia buries people under in sand mines using excavators that they use in mining works. So when a gang war breaks out, whether people are wounded or dead, no bodies come out of the mining sites, so that there is no evidence for families to approach the police. And people are anyway afraid of approaching the police because they believe the police are working in collusion with the sand mafia. Because when a gang war breaks out, there are loud gunshots for everybody to hear for miles together. But the cops do not venture, even if they arrive they stop on the main roads. So the local people have seen that. And in this particular case of gang war, since when Sunita's father has been missing, the police confirmed just one death, but 2 days later, two more bodies were found floating downstream. And people were insisting, the local media and local residents were insisting all the while that there are far more people dead and they have been buried. These two people, their bodies were found because they were not buried, but they were entangled in wires that are used to tie boats. So, and they were at the gang war site when it broke out. We found several other leads to people, victim families, but most families were like too afraid to speak. There are no missing complaints. Some people said that when they approached the police, most families are too afraid to approach the police for the fear of sand mafia. And if they approach the police, their complaints are not registered. I mean, in these cases, one death is one too many. And here we don't even know how many victims we are talking about. We have anecdotal evidence, but we have no estimate on how many people have been killed so far. The mafia is unafraid to even attack government officials, including the police. When the police raid a place, like apparently a miner's den, they are fired at, and a lot of cops get injured, some are killed. And these gang wars are pretty common. There are videos that have gone viral on social media. So in one case, after which Sunita's father went missing, there were viral videos from that particular case, and the police recovered thousands of live and empty cartridges and the guns, including AK-47s and AK-56. And these incidents are far too common for, I think, our comfort. And if it still doesn't get the kind of attention, like my colleague from Ghana was talking about, how they don't make headlines, I think that's really uh, discomforting. And that's exactly what we are trying with this story.
Okay, thank you, Monica, for sharing. So if you want to read more about the story of the crime angle, you can visit our website beneath the sands, S with the S in the back, .earth. And also you can jump to section India or like another country there. So you can choose which country. Anyone to ask question? So we have been here like for 1.5 hours now. If no one asks question, I think like that's for today. Yeah, that's for today. Thank you so much for attending our discussion. We are going to put this discussion on YouTube, so you can rewatch again and share with your college. So I would like to remind you that even though this is like the last event for our global collaborations, but we are going to have our global convening where you can ask all question about our grant the whole year, and then also you can pitch any idea or any topic that we should investigate this year and next year. So I think that's it from me and all of the ERC team. Thank you so much for attending the meeting, and see you in the next event.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.